Hi and welcome back. In this week's video I'm going to show you how I prepare clay, make and complete a simple line vase. This line vase is the same one that was seen in my last vlog, but due to Cape Town or South Africa currently being in winter and my home studio being outside, I haven't had the opportunity to make any more content or any more pieces for brand new content, so I thought I would just show the full process of making this vase and my thought process through each step and just go a little bit more in depth into making the actual vase. I'd like to make a quick statement that even though I've been hand building for a number of years now, I'm still learning on the wheel. I've been getting a few comments, commentary on my wheel throwing abilities, and I would just like to say I'm still a beginner. I'm not putting out there that I'm a professional, so I'm still learning, and yeah, it's just included in my videos because it's a part of what I'm doing. I'm still experimenting with different techniques and finding my own style, both in pottery and in video making, hence the new style of video this week. Okay, well, with that being said, let's get into the actual video. I start off by preparing my clay. I use white stoneware. If you do want to know more information about different types of clay and how it all works, I do have a full beginner's tutorial video where I explain everything, the whole ceramic process. If you'd like to know more information, make sure to check that out. But yeah, I start off by wedging it and weighing each piece. For this particular vase, I weighed 2 sets of 800 grams. So the wedging or kneading is necessary to get rid of any air bubbles that may be trapped in the clay, which if there are air bubbles, it can make it very difficult during the throwing process, and if there's still air bubbles after that, then it can even cause your piece to chip off or explode in the kiln, which obviously is not wanted. This also softens the clay a bit, making it a bit nicer to use. I shape it into a cone once it's been wedged, just because it makes the next step of throwing a little bit easier. Whenever you throw, the first step is always to center your clay. This is vital for a number of reasons. The first one, to make it center on the wheel, which will make the actual throwing stage easier and possible. And the second is that it's another form of wedging. It gets rid of any more air bubbles that are in there and makes it a little bit easier to work with. I throw a simple cylinder shape on the wheel, making sure that it is wide enough to ultimately support the tall shape that it will be, and hopefully one day the bunch of flowers that will be in it. I pull up the walls gently and gradually. You don't want to rush the step. So I bring the clay from the base all the way through the walls and to the rim, giving it more height. With my hand on the inside, my finger is pushing outwards, which creates a bulge, and then my hand on the outside is pushing that bulge upward, which is moving the clay all the way up, thinning out the walls and giving it more height. I straighten the walls by pushing the clay onto a straight edge tool, as well as taking any extra slip off, which will help it dry a little bit quicker and easier to remove the piece afterwards. I carefully level the rim using the needle tool and compress it by running my fingers over the top. Here you'll see me placing a piece of paper on the pot before removing it. This is such a handy tip that I've seen multiple times, and it basically just creates a seal so that it will not deform while you are handling it and removing it. AKA it will remain a circle. I make sure to measure the opening so that I can replicate it the same size, because I am needing 2 of these, and then gently remove it from the wheel. When removing it, I add a little bit of water to the base and then run a wire tool underneath it, and then the water basically helps it slip and not stick, so that you can easily just move it off the wheel. I then throw an identical shape, which I didn't show here because ultimately I repeat the exact same thing, so I don't want to bore you with the same video again. I left them overnight to stiffen slightly so that when handled they do not deform but the clay can still be worked with because I still need to attach the two. There is definitely a more efficient way of building this vase, for example using the slab method or throwing the full vase on the wheel, but my wheel is handmade with the gate motor and has one speed setting, so I decided to throw it in smaller parts just so that it doesn't put any unnecessary strain on the motor. Obviously because the more clay you use and work with, the more force it will put onto the wheel and ultimately onto the motor. After all, it'll give the same end product. In this vase, I really wanted to experiment with mixing, throwing and hand building into the same form, which I'll explain later. It worked and then some things didn't work, but I'll get more into that now. I attached the one part to the wheel by weighting it slightly and then centering it on the wheel and adding 3 pieces of clay around the base to keep it securely in place. I then score the rim of both cylinders and add some slip that is from the same clay body. So basically if I used white stoneware, I used white stoneware slip. Slip is just a little bit of clay mixed with water to make like a sludge, and this is kind of acts like a glue. So the scored surface and the slip will help create a secure attachment, which is vital because you don't want any cracks to form where you've attached 2 pieces. I then add the second cylinder, gently applying pressure just to help with that attachment. Like I said before, it needs to be a secure attachment. I remove the top base to create an opening. This is achieved by running a needle tool along the top until it cuts all the way through. I then smooth out that surface where the cut was, just using a tool. I then attach the join properly. I do this by adding a coil around the join and then blending it out to create a seamless connection. This is where it kind of went downhill, but I brought it back up. But I decided to add a pinch pot piece on the top to give it a little bit more shape. But looking back on it, it was definitely the wrong choice. The walls were bumpy, which made trying to throw it a challenge. It also gave a very different effect to the rest of the vase. So yeah, that's that. I did that. But anyway, I could have easily created the same effect using another thrown piece or a slab or even adding coils. But as mentioned before, I'm experimenting with different techniques. And I think if I didn't do this now, I would have tried it sometime in the future anyway. So yeah. At the end of the day, it's not a problem. It worked out and I'm adding lines to it anyways. So the surface doesn't matter too much because it'll be covered. After leaving it overnight under a sheet of plastic, it is then ready to attach the lines. I covered it in plastic because the top of the vase was a different dryness level to the rest of the vase. So by drying it slowly, it gives it more time to level out and prevent the risk of any cracks forming where I've attached things. What I mean by a different dryness level is that I threw those 2 cylinders, I let them dry slightly before I attached them, and then the pinch pot thing that I added on top was fresh clay, so that was way more wet than the rest of the vase, so it needed to level out. I then attached the lines by simply rolling out thin coils and laying it out onto the vase. I let each coil hang freely before pushing it onto the surface, just to let gravity assist with getting those lines straight. I then blended the edges to secure it onto the surface and just repeated the process throughout the whole vase. I always find the first line to be the most challenging to attach, and then from there it just carries on with a bit more ease. And that's it. I will let this vase dry for about 2 or so weeks before getting it fired. This particular vase is actually a wedding gift for my sister. So yeah, I'm really keen to see how it turns out, and I'll definitely show you the finished product in a future video. So keep an eye out for that. My plan is just to do a simple off-white glaze over the whole thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.